Welcome to the Creative Condition podcast, an ongoing series of conversations and considerations to help people understand and embrace their own unique creativity for fulfilling lives and brilliant careers. My name is Ben Talon. I'm an illustrator and author, and I bring 16 years of creative industry experience working with the New York Times, The Guardian, the Premier League, and more. And I invite designers, artists, psychologists, scientists, coaches, athletes, sensitivity experts, and all kinds of thought leaders to help us broaden our knowledge of creativity. Creativity is a fundamental pillar of human happiness, a vital ingredient in the solutions to our problems, but so often misunderstood. The show is supported by founding sponsor and B Corp, Illustration X. Take a look at their stunning range of illustrators and animators at illustrationx.com. If you like the music for the show, it's by Dirty Freud, who you can listen to now on Spotify and all good music streaming services. Today we're switching gears to the Creative Condition Diary Installment 1. This is a brand new, regular, ongoing feature to balance the guest episodes where I'm taking you deep inside this mind and this fascination I have with creativity. I wanted to take you guys along for the ride. It's unrefined, it's raw, it's whimsical, and I want conversations to build around it. I'm looking forward to your thoughts. This is episode 1 of the Creative Condition Diary. Hello, how are you doing, guys? I hope you're well. My name is Ben Talon. This is episode 1 of the Creative Condition Diary. I am probably going to... Do I name it? Do I number it? Do I name it? No, I don't think I do. It's episode 250 just behind us with Justine Fox. I hope you enjoyed that one. That was UK Grey. We were talking about the downturn in weather in the UK, and it can be bleak, even though as I record this, we have a lovely autumnal sunny day today. Chilly, sunny day, beautiful as they are. We are outweighed by grey, miserable days, and in this climate of fear and 24/7 news cycles and media bombardment and certain elections, it's very easy to walk around in a funk, to stare at your screen and feed what they lead you into looking at, which is all those ugly headlines that alarm us and trigger the fight, flight, freeze instinct. And I fell prey to that, as you regular listeners will well know, in a pretty bad way in my first couple of years of being a parent. So tired, so vulnerable, so run down that I just got caught up in everything with the climate crisis and wars in the world. And for a time it felt like, what's the point? What am I going to do? I've got 2 kids now. This is horrific. And I found myself routinely alarmed. There are some bits in this diary that will give you a clue that I have turned a corner. I have found little mechanisms to help myself, and that's the kind of thing that I want to share because it all feeds creativity. Now, I had a conversation this morning with good friend Andy Cotterill, music photographer. You might remember the collaboration we've done, Lend Me Your Ear. I share images from that quite regularly, collaboration of illustration and hand lettering and music photography from Andy's 30-odd year archive, and we're both very vulnerable thinkers. We talk a lot about the emotional side of things. And we talked about the how hard it is to be creative when you have the financial panic, when it's a quiet spell and you're wondering where the next, I wanted to say check then, I don't think checks are even a thing anymore, about as relevant as Snapchat these days, but we'll not get into that. But we talked about the stasis that sets in when you've got that kind of emotional baggage or mental weight. Very hard to be optimally creative because we do sometimes respond to the negative emotion spectrum, but I find that fear, stress and panic are unsustainable in the long term. So you might have the odd kickback that is cool and creative and emotional, but you can't do that 5 days a week, 4 weeks a month, 52 weeks a year. It's almost impossible because it's not conducive to flow and curiosity and inner peace and the unconscious doing its thing. There's so much around that stops us from being creative. So I had to get my act together and work it out. And on those grey days, to go back to the episode with Justine Fox, there is method to this tangent. I wanted to get into the idea that we could colour our environment better, that we could use colour in architecture, knowing what we know about colour psychology and the emotional impacts of all that, to do something more considered to help people unconsciously in their day-to-day. I should say subconsciously, actually, there's quite a difference, but so subconsciously, you're walking around a shitty rundown Arndale and there's no trees and there's a McDonald's on the corner and you see a few sketchy people dealing drugs in plain sight, which is not uncommon in the cities, and it really brings your mood down. That's just one example, but for me it's litter. It's urban architecture without greenery. It all weighs on the mind, and so we had a conversation about why we don't do more with colour, what Justine would like to see as an applied colour psychologist, and some beautiful insights from her, because what a profession. So I hope you enjoyed that episode. Go back and listen to episode 250. Can you believe that? 250. And that's the tip of the iceberg, because as you know, as to my initial point, I don't always number these episodes chronologically. So there'll be 250, there'll be 251. But in between, I do creative stories. Now we've got the Creative Condition Diary, which is going to be more of an insight to the weekly workings, because I think so much day in, day out. Creativity is my passion. I think about it every single day. So on the new Creative Condition website, which should be launched by the end of this month, I'm very excited to tell you. So many resources on there, so much to access, but we'll get into that down the line. I'm writing a diary, and I'm 9 installments deep. So today I'm going to read you the first 9 because I want you to come along on the ride with me. And I would love to hear from you on these things. If there's a certain point in any of the posts, I would love you to drop me a little email at hello@bentalon.com and have a chat, because I want to elevate the conversation between you, the listener, and me. It's one of the reasons I love this industry and I am so passionate about creativity, is that I want to talk to people. I want to share the inner workings of my mind. I want to help people, and I want to elevate the cause and the role of creativity in our society. And this isn't art and design for artists and designers. In fact, I'm going the other way. My episodes are going to be increasingly about psychology, about the human condition, and not necessarily about design, illustration, art. There will be a lot of that, because I think it's a beautiful, pure use of creativity, so we can always learn a lot, and I will always come back to the industry that gave me a career. But you're going to be seeing me ranging out a lot more. Just yesterday I interviewed David Laddershon. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Sorry, David, if I'm not, but he's a fly fisher from the States. I think he's based in San Antonio, who developed a love and an obsession with Leonardo da Vinci. So I'm talking to a fly fisher about Leonardo da Vinci. That's an example of where this show is going in terms of the breadth that I want to learn about creativity from. Some of the episodes, I guess you'll love. Some of them you'll think, what the fuck's he doing? But that's what it is. And the diary is going to be the bridge between all of that, where I think and it's raw, and I just dump my mind into this website and into my notebook, and I'm going to read it out to you guys. So there'll be some weeks when this is the main episode, other weeks when I continue to produce guest episodes. But what it means is guaranteed I can give you a weekly show. And because of the quick nature of it, there might be more than one episode a week. So really, it's going to up the content I'm putting out, but it's going to switch the nature from predominantly guest episodes to more of a balance between my exploration of creativity and the beautiful guests that help me to flesh that out. So that's where we are. I want your feedback on it. I would love it if you could let me know what you think of this new format. Before I go any further, big thank you to the founding sponsor of the show, Illustration X. They've been here since day one, supporting as ever, and I'm sure they'll be as excited about this new direction as everything else that I've done in the past 9 years. Thank you if you've been here since day one. Welcome if you're new. Can I ask you a big favour? Please, if you enjoy this, tell somebody about it. It's the best way you can help me to promote this show and elevate this cause of creativity. If you care about that and you want to help me out, then please just tell somebody. You could also leave a review, a subscription, and a rating. If you could do all of it, then you will be my friend forever. That's amazing. Thank you very much. But telling a friend is amazing, because podcasts grow organically through word of mouth, because people trust people's recommendations. You know, the people who tell me about a certain show, I will check it out. Whereas if I stumble across it on Spotify, I might listen, but the chances are I'll make a note and never come back to it, because that's the kind of brain that I have. Flits from reference to resource to reference to resource and off somewhere else. So there you have it. One more little request. Please do go and check out ui.org.ua. That's the Ukrainian Institute. These guys, plain and simple, share the work of the Ukrainian community at a time of war, when they need global support more than ever before. I would love it if you could go and have a look at the great work they're all producing and share it. Share it with somebody. If you're in a position to commission it. Any help you can give is amazing for such a horrific time for these guys. We've got Casper and Eugene coming up from Synoptic Office. That's a New York design agency working with cultural archive material to create digital arms of museums and that. That's my best effort. It's brilliant. It's a really interesting episode. That's coming up. We've got David Ladishon talking about fly fishing and Leonardo da Vinci. Believe me, it's a profound episode. It's wonderful. I loved talking to David, and there's so much there. You wouldn't believe the amount of connections between optimal creativity and fly fishing. It's incredible, but we'll get to that in due course. So loads of good episodes coming up. Let me know if you want to be on the show. I always accept pitches. I will always cast my eye over a PR release, an idea, what you've been up to. Love talking to people around this show. Let's do it more. If you are interested in booking me for a live podcast, I'd love to do that. I interviewed Stefan Sagmeister, design legend, at Off Festival 2024 last year in front of 3,000 people. That was an amazing experience. I've also done shows for the likes of D&AD New Blood in front of 40 to 50 people. I've talked on a Monday morning to 6 students who didn't laugh at my jokes, and I love all of it. I like getting up there. I like talking about my passion. I would love to do it for you. So if you're interested in booking me, give me a shout. I am looking for new sponsors for the show, so please give me a shout if you want to come on board as a partner. That would be awesome. Join Illustration X in helping me promote this cause. But that's about it. Let's get into the diary. Without further ado, here we go. First post, 21st of October. Don't think, act. My friend is waiting in my inbox, jet-lagged and in a state of utter panic. He's read a horrifying report about carbon sinks, those big forests and peat bogs and soil beds that drink up a lot of the shit we pump out into the atmosphere, failing. The report is by The Guardian, one of a handful of responsible media outlets who will cover the stuff that matters instead of dividing people in the name of vested interest. At first, I follow him off the mental cliff. It's happening again. Rampant eco-anxiety cutting off my ability to think, act, smile, move. This happened a lot during early parenthood, when fatigue cut off my brain's air supply, when I was down and vulnerable to the world's ills. Take action. That's what I learned. Those fucking silly brains of ours, the highly sensitive ones that make us good at certain jobs, enable us to enjoy deep friendships and romantic connections, but in the name of balance, take us to dark places, especially when Armageddon is in the news again. And when this anxiety habit became a serious problem for me in 2021, when I'd spend several days feeling hopeless because the neighbours cut down a mature tree just to put a tiny driveway outside their house, I had to spend time learning about the way my brain works, the way fight, flight or freeze can trick our modern brains into thinking things are worse than they are. When I did, none of the problems that had triggered these mental battles went away or lessened in severity, but I recognised that I could respond better to them. I could handle their assaults, hold fort long enough to assess what I could do about it. If it turned out there was nothing I could do, I'd anchor my mind on a carousel of positive thoughts until my heart slowed and my brain returned to baseline optimism. It wasn't denial, but acknowledgement of the fact that I'm far more useful in the fight when I'm not an anxious mess. Stressing about what you can't change just wastes your days, and it's bloody exhausting. Not to mention, really shit for those around you. So I sent these tips back to my poor friend who is about to become a parent as a climate crisis escalates. I took action. Helping him helped me because I've been where he is and I go there still some days, and this positive response stopped me from dwelling on the report. Then I turned my attention back to creativity, my fight within the fight, my special suit. Elevate creativity in education and society and we stand a far better chance of surviving. I believe that, and so should you. It's why we're here today. It's how we'll survive tomorrow, and it's what saved me from mental illness during new parenthood. Purpose, belonging, community. Even in the apocalypse, these things make it bearable. Creativity boosts all of them, and its reciprocal, nourishing effect. With those three, you'll be more creative and maybe, just maybe, stay sane in these crazy days. 22nd of October 2024, Misanthropy. I read something bad and it threw me off for a couple of hours. During that time I questioned the human condition. Dark thoughts crossed my mind and I wondered if we're fundamentally destructive. Human history provides enough material to support that notion. It's called misanthropy. My own lived experience and my observations of others balances this somewhat. but it's enough of a concern to start developing an aspect of my coaching to help my clients develop resilience against these kinds of assaults on the mind. More soon. 27th of October 2024, Sculpture Park. It was Chris Pirate during our conversation on episode 211 of the Creative Condition podcast who questioned the default affixing of childlike to imagination. His take, with which I agree, was that imagination is imagination. We only call it childlike because it becomes much harder as we mature into adulthood. The maturity trap. That's what I call it. Anyway, I took the family, including my parents, along to the magnificent Yorkshire Sculpture Park. It was a moody autumnal day. A spasm of yellow, red and orange trees. A climate crisis autumn if ever I saw one. Complete uncertain midges lingering on in the new season. Yorkshire Sculpture Park is sprawling, a national treasure of a site, and I felt annoyed with myself for suggesting that the sheer space and natural setting would be good for the kids to run about in. As if the rest of us, ranging between 41 and 69, wouldn't get to the same evolutionary urges to roam, scale, sneak, see and scream. It's what we are. Sure enough, the kids were off and running early doors, but so was I, and not under cover of 4-year-olds. I paced 360 around Henry Moore's and Damien Hirst's, awed by the context, this clutch of nature in which they lived, exposed to the elements, inviting ponderance and play. As we progressed around the route that would enable the kids to tick off the sculptures on their worksheets, I noticed conversations deepen as we came together and parted, then came together again in changing groups of 2, 3 and 4 adults, at times a full 6, asking the kids basic questions about colours, shape, scale and standpoint. Questions that I realised I hadn't asked of these gorgeous lumps of imagination before. I never did pay too much attention in art history or theory, and my joy took on new forms. But those chats! Now 3/4 of the way through Richard Louv's The Nature Principle, I understood that they were not just coincidence. The art was in every leaf, tree, heavy cloud, the flocks of Canada geese rip-roaring over the lake, and in the other visitors who shared the park with us. This whole place was curation in motion, from seed to sculpture, a cocktail of colour coming together as art and nature should. The pin finally pierced the balloon in a Friday tea-time Bradford traffic jam as we sat and stared sullenly out the misty car windows at red lights and grey blocks of concrete and Matalan. But my mind appreciated the range in the day's diet, even if I wanted to get onto brighter surrounds once more. The conversation in the car gravitated towards benefits and the state of post-industrial northern towns, and just like the layered chat in Yorkshire Sculpture Park, this wasn't without cause. I allowed my mind to drift as the marvels of the bronze giants continued to stir something primal. 28th of October 2024, Galadriel's Mirror. It's my first school half-term and I'm out stewarding the first rides on new bikes for my son and daughter. We build slowly, rolling over leaf carpets, the kids wary of the false promise of stability from less than reliable stabilisers. Me on the edge, knowing how many sleeping dog shits might be awoken and packed into fresh tyre treads with only one mug to clean them off. Then it's down the park's long path and across into the arts centre. Eventually, we find ourselves making use of the paths around the local police station, which are both smooth and undercover. My lad gets faster each time he comes down a manageable decline, and my lass opts to ride up and back on herself, along the top, past the police station entrance. Until now, I've been happily present, fresh off a new commission confirmation, enjoying this day off purely. But as my lass trundles along, beaming from under her pink helmet, a swaggering silhouette bowls around the corner with a gait that should only really come from animated illustrations. Caricatures. He's gnashing gum, and the final dip of his shoulder as he turns and enters the station is downright Dickensian. Now I'm only half seeing my daughter because I've peeked into Galadriel's mirror. My imagination gallops up on its own hill into technical musings over who this character is, why he's here, where he's from, what's he done. I quickly check my preconceptions and try to consider noble belongings, but I have to shove forward a guess that it might be because of some form of impery. And for argument's sake, I think of all various colourful characters I've encountered in my time, those who I know have been up to no good, and the innocence of the child on the bike. What roots to any eventual legally binding appearance at these doors she just passed might be there for her? or any person for that matter, and how is it best avoided? If you've followed my work, read my books or listened to my podcast, you'll know I'm passionate about creativity's role in the trajectory of a person's life. It came up prominently on the Bike Storms episode with Mac Ferrari and Jake 100. How kids with purpose, community and the ability to express themselves tend to make better decisions. There's every chance that I do all this hard work, teach her to use her creativity, expose her to the things I feel might meet her personality, ability, clues she's showing me halfway, listen, love, steer and provide, only for her to be an absolute wrong-un. But the chances of that are small. Human needs are relatively basic, but under capitalism, it can be hard for people to find the time, energy or knowledge to give to their young. There's no way of telling why people end up swaggering that way, flying off at the handle, not the silhouette, remember I don't know why he's here, or becoming prominent members of society for disagreeable reasons, but I look for the upsides. It's become a habit since chats such as the Bike Storms one. How do we get that aggression into the right space? How do we encourage him to scream at the sky in a way that is healthy and might set him on a different, more constructive course? These characters have inspired me from an early age because they provoke the prized human asset, imagination. How do we manage the barbed aspects of such individuals while showcasing to them the possibilities in the world for their attractive traits? How do we inject that imagination with an inspiration steroid? That takes patience, time, empathy, belief in the human condition, and nurture. Another scarce cocktail under capitalism. It was Shaz from Additive, who I shared a London studio space with, who ran youth art workshops, who believed that it took entrepreneurial skills to be a drug dealer, so shouldn't we be diverting those street smarts? Anyway, the kids progress with the bikes and I see two more curious arrivals at the station with less swagger, but equally eyebrow-raising vibrancy, and we all head home happy with a lot to reflect upon. 3rd of November 2024, local. Groveley Woods is a short drive from our house, so to see out our first half-term school holiday, I bung the kids and the dog in the car with a packed lunch. Biophilia has been high on my parenting priority list from the get-go, but now amplified since discovering the essential work of Richard Louv. The reasons are innumerable and shouldn't need spelling out, but go and read his books and it'll blow your head off. My big takeaway is the quiet. Something covered in the nature principle is the difficulty to find silence, without the incessant churn of cars, without human activity. It's here, and we sit for long spells on logs without words passing our lips, fiddling with sticks, picking up autumn leaves and analysing the blends of green, yellow, orange, red and brown. We navigate boggy bits, negotiate brambles and stand on various sticks and roots, working those muscles for flexibility. Needless to say, the dog loves it and comes and goes, tail up like a car aerial, ears pricked. There are signs about ash dieback and stumps where thinning has taken place, and I have to grasp for the thought processes to avert a mental landslide. This stuff hurts me badly, the downside of sensitivity. The kids, thankfully, are not there yet, but they won't be shielded in years to come. Their creativity will require a bond with nature more than any previous generation. They already ask big questions of grandparents and educate them on the damage litter causes and why we must fight for nature. It's a strange thing to hear between 4-year-olds and octogenarians. That night, it's a friend's birthday due in a local pub. We get deep after a couple of pints. He's an artist, graphic novelist on a painting MA and has hired a big, more affordable barn in the countryside. He's purposely left technology elsewhere, so when he goes there, he's in a big space and there's just him, the art and some music. We talk about space and its impact on mindset and creativity. I recount the big factory spaces of my graphic design BTEC and how I'd love to access such space again now. The MA, he tells me, is awesome. One day a week, part-time, with tutors who have very different takes and tastes, who push hard. The people on the course are an energising mix too. People from all over the place who are there because they want something from this experience in a different way to higher education, when we've not quite lived enough life to need it in the same way. We get onto nature somehow, and it hits me for 6 when he tells me he heard it said that humans are nature's way of seeing itself. He takes a sip of his drink and watches me spluttering, trying to find the words to come back from that, but there are none. I'll leave that with you. I might get there eventually. 5th of November 2024, Thought Police. The intrusive thoughts start on the way back from the school drop-off. Ooh, 2 days and you're a quarter into November, and you've not yet made a tenth of your minimum living costs. Oh, still quiet, isn't it? This time I grab them and shove a fistful of crispy brown autumn leaves into their toxic mouths. The first correction is the month-on-month metric. Granted, over a long timeline, that has to stack up. But I get £300 months, and I occasionally, not often enough, get £10,000 months. Maybe this recent sleep improvement, the kids not being up 5 times per night, is helping. But I remind myself of those bumper months, which felt just as impossible as any new work feels right now. This could be this month. It's all possible after all, and I'm in a position to receive such fortune, putting myself out with a lot of experience, an established brand, and a strong, versatile portfolio. And the optimism returns, so I jog part of the way to get my blood pumping. This self-talk is everything, and so much hinges on the tone of it. I carved out a career that was unlikely in the first place. There was no way I could convince anyone in logical or probability terms, but it felt great, and that's always been enough for me. Not just enough, but the grand prize. And despite the fear that always lurks, I still feel excited about wherever the hell I'm going. For you, reader, if you exist, work on that self-talk. In any given moment, the fear that stalks you is far likelier to shit its pants and run off if you have inner authority and processes to feed it through. Mash it like plasticine into something useful. 7th of November 2024. To despair or... The morning after the 2016 US presidential election, I sat there in disbelief as Donald Trump entered the White House by borrowing directly from the playbook of my beloved professional wrestling. Shouting bollocks, he smarmed and grinned and made big statements, and when you boil it right down, people are simple creatures. They are emotional, and when they are pissed off in their lives, those emotions rule the human. Trump used that psychology and technology masterfully to exploit their vulnerability. As we'd seen here in the UK with Brexit, I felt horrified. All of my environmental terrors would be compounded, and this caricature was about to lead the human race off the highest of cliffs. We have no way of truly charting the damage he did in his first term, but we know that it wasn't good, and now he's back. But in contrast to my moping around my then London flat in 2016, in fight, flight or freeze mode, my heart erratic, my mouth open, this time I got on with my day. Yep, I felt sadness. Yep, I felt anger at the naivety of my kind. And yes, I felt fearful as I watched my children playing and wondered what impact this would have on their lives. But as I watched them, I also allowed my mind to wade through the dismay and slowly ascend the bank on the other side, because those two humans need a leader. We all must be the leaders of our own lives, not just souls, lost souls on the internet. Angry at the other, imprisoned by what might happen. We might perceive those who've lashed out once more as others, but we are in this together. And if we can't find a way to address our differences, to get together in person and recognise that we'd all just like to get on with our lives, then this will get worse. That day in 2016, I created nothing. I struggled to exist that day. Today, I had meaningful conversations, felt good, made things, developed ideas, ran around the woods with my dog and worked out. Because if I stop and admit defeat, then fear takes over and I am no good to anyone. And just now, every single one of us is needed to fight for what we believe in. If I'm energised and ideas flow and I see colours where there might just be grey, then I can be additive to the lives of others. So I exerted my conscious awareness and shut down my negative spiral. I've seen more than my fair share of instances where an individual's actions moved many people and shifted culture. In each case, resolve was required, and the individual could never have predicted or engineered that. At various intervals, those fears seeped in, but like a cartoon stalker. Each time I fixed my gaze upon them, they froze and eventually fled. It's not easy. It takes training, but it's worth it because the alternative is to surrender my optimism, and nobody in my life deserves that. As far as I can tell, I'm only here once, and I'm not without responsibility for what my species does here during my time. So let's make great art. Let's use that negative emotion spectrum to its fullest and show how beautiful and intricate we can be, even in the face of hypercapitalism at its worst. 11th of November 2024. On Learning Tech, Unconscious Dump. Early Sunday morning, 2 a.m-ish, I'm woken by one of the kids calling for the duvet to be pulled back over. A chilly night. When I return to bed, I'm still with eyes closed and a foggy brain. Beautiful. Drift right back off and see you in the morning. But there's a drip. One great thought delivered by my unconscious. Another drip. And then a cascade of liquid gold, solutions, ideas, pivots, you name it. And I'm wide awake. Irritating? At least the timing, yes, but my word, it's good. There are breakthroughs in blockades I didn't know I had, lists are writing themselves for my coaching strategy, and new sections for the website presenting themselves in finished form. Eventually, with my conscious brain about to burst, I reach for my phone and make 4 paragraphs of shorthand notes. When I look in the morning, I expect indecipherable drivel, but it's not. I can't be certain why this is happening. But having written about this extensively, read up on the topic of the unconscious's role in creativity, it all aligns. Feed your head, give it time to rest and process, and when you least expect it, the answers will come. Nobel Prize-winning ideas came this way. Over the last few weeks, I've been unlearning the destructive screen habit. I spend much of my workdays on one, and I've been identifying opportunities to dissect it, to inject methods of organising, planning, working, without the need to stare at a monitor, laptop or smartphone. Paper diary, recycled stock exercise book for my coaching research, more play with paints and pens on paper and with collage, stricter routines for keeping up with messages and emails, both social and professional, reading more books, less TV, balance. And I have to think it's beginning to pay off. Couple this with a ban on screens during my dog walks, and I feel more connected in conversations, outdoors, and during trips from A to B. Everything a little richer, and less work required for the solutions to my challenges and ambitions. My problems, they've shrunk a little. Thank you so much for listening, guys. That is the first instalment of the Creative Condition Diary, which is going to be a feature of the brand new Creative Condition website when it launches at the end of this month. I'm sure you'll be on the channels. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, and I'll be announcing all of that also through the podcast. So keep checking back in. Next week, we've got Casper and Eugene from Synoptic Office in New York. If I can give you a tip, go and have a look at their letters and their diary section on their website. Some beautiful, beautiful work, including a letter to a design student, which is wonderful. Really great, inspiring studio there in the States. Big thank you to the founding sponsor of the show, illustrationx.com, for standing by me since day one back in 2015. Here we are in this exciting new evolution for the Creative Condition. The coaching is launching in a big way at the end of this month, along with the website. There's going to be a reading list for you guys who don't have the budget for coaching but are interested. The diary is there for you also. There's going to be plenty of free resources on that website. So it's going to be something for everyone, because I want this to be free for the people who can't afford it. I want options for people who have a little budget and see the value in all of my learnings and my knowledge of creativity, and that comes in the form of workshops, talks and coaching. So it's very exciting times for me here, but check back in next week, guys. We'll chat soon. Have a great week. And if you could, check out the Ukrainian Institute, ui.org.ua. Support the Ukrainian creative community at a horrific time of war. The Creative Condition book is out now, along with the Anatomy of Creativity map. Resources that you can get for under 25 quid as a bundle, and they're going to set you up in your career and launch you forward. So please do it. Support little old independent me. Cheers, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this. Get me your feedback. hello@bentalon.com. Have an awesome week. Love every one of you. Take care.